G'day Flow Crew, today we're looking at the all-new Polygon Colossus T. It's a brand new bike in the lineup and it slots into the aggressive trail bike category. Quick spoiler alert before we dive into the full review, this could potentially be the most well-rounded mountain bike Polygon has ever made. The aggressive trail bike category is arguably the most competitive sector of the mountain bike market. These bikes often have the potential to be the only ride in your shed. This one fits in perfectly between the Siskiyou range and the more gravity-focused Colossus models. Polygon has really stepped up its game to compete here with the new Colossus T. It features a carbon frame with internal storage, the IFS suspension design and adjustable geometry, which is something I thought was missing from some of the recent high-performance bikes from Polygon. The Polygon Colossus T comes with 29-inch wheels front and rear, but it's also mixed wheel compatible. For the rear travel, there's 140mm on offer and up front is a 160mm fork. I tested the middle of the line Colossus T8, which retails at 6,199 Australian dollars. At this price point, we're moving out of the truly budget category, but what we're getting here is a bike that offers some really solid value for money. The bike's performance has been excellent and the spec is well chosen for the most part. More on that shortly when we dive into the highs and lows of the components. I've already mentioned the price of the T8 I've been testing, but it's worth mentioning the other two models. They all use the same carbon frame, and the base model, the Colossus T6, will come in at 4,999 Aussie dollars, and the top-end Colossus T9 will retail for 8,699 Aussie dollars. For this review, I'll be focusing on the middle of the line T8, which I think is going to be a popular choice amongst those three options. The Colossus T8 tips the scales at 15.3 kilograms in its stock configuration, which is quite respectable, putting it in the middle of the range in terms of weight, and I'll get into the ride characteristics that come with that later on. Let's dive into the sizing and geometry to get a better idea of what this bike is all about. I was sent the size large to test, which has a 485mm reach, paired with 435mm chainstays on the size large and extra large, whereas the small and medium frames have 430mm chainstays. For reference, I'm 179 centimeters tall, and I usually look for bikes with a reach between 475mm and 485mm, so this was right on the upper limit of what I would normally ride. I put on a shorter 35mm stem and added some spaces under the stem to bring the cockpit up and a little closer, but overall I felt this was the right size for me. Staying on the topic of geometry, one thing I'm pleased to see on this bike is the inclusion of adjustable geo into the frame. This is something that has been missing from other high-end Polygon models that have recently been released. On the Polygon Colossus T we have here, you can tweak the head angle via the included headset cups, giving you room to tinker around the stock 64-degree head angle. There's also a high and low flip chip, as well as the mixed-wheeled flip chip, offering quite a few different configurations. For all of the geometry charts for each setting, be sure to check out the full written review via the link below. So what do all these geo numbers actually mean once you get the bike out onto the trail? And the long story short here is that it's a very capable and aggressive bike. This bike descends like it wants to be pushed beyond what a 140mm travel bike would normally handle. On paper, the rear travel puts it in the trail bike category, but once you get it out and start riding it, it feels more like an enduro machine. It's comfortable being pushed to its limit over steep and rough terrain. I've ridden 3 bikes this year with Polygon's IFS suspension platform, and I've grown to love it. I think it's highly underrated. It does a good job of providing support, but doesn't feel overly firm. Earlier in the year, I tested the e-bike version of the Colossus T, which also has 140mm of rear travel and very similar geometry. With that bike and this one as well, it does like to be pushed hard, but there is a point when you do hit the end of the travel. And at 140mm, it does come up quite quickly on a bike that's geared towards gnarly terrain. The 140mm of travel that's on offer feels amazing until it runs out. For general trail riding, this bike performed really well. It tracks the ground, but also has a playful feel to it. Not as playful as some other trail bikes, but you definitely notice that it's not a full-blown enduro bike. It can definitely handle some bike park sessions. I spent some time in the Grouse Mountain Bike Park here in North Vancouver, but the rear travel has its limits when you are experiencing consistent larger compressions. The downhill capabilities of the Colossus T are impressive, but if you're buying a trail bike over an enduro bike, climbing performance really matters. To win me over, an aggressive trail bike needs to climb significantly better than an enduro bike. To test this, I took this bike on a wide variety of trails, including a massive day in Whistler's backcountry. During this ride, I was very happy to be on a slightly lighter and more efficient bike compared to a full-blown enduro machine. At 15.3 kilograms, it's not the lightest trail bike out there, but it's considerably lighter than many enduro bikes that often tip the scales above 17 kilos. The slightly lighter weight and the extra efficiency really makes a difference on long climbs and extended rides. It also has a more sprightly feel when you put the power down. There's a lot to like about the Polygon Colossus T8, but with like all bikes, there are some things I'd like to see refined. The sleek carbon frame, excellent ride quality, adjustable geo, and in-frame storage are all benefits. The in-frame storage is a nice overall addition, but on my last few rides before filming this, the latch started to get stuck. I've reached out to Polygon and I'll get an update in the written review once I hear back. Fingers crossed it's a minor issue, as I use and value in-frame storage a lot. I think it's a solid feature to add to this platform. On my wish list of things, I would put adjustable chainstay length, as when I tested the e-bike version of the Colossus T, I found the longer 450mm chainstays to also work really well. Let's take a look at the component highs and lows now, and the Polygon Colossus T8 has a tough job. Bikes that sit in the middle of the lineup, they're expected to offer the best value for money, but there are always compromises that need to be made to keep the price point mid-range. Here are some of the components where I think Polygon has made smart choices. First up, the Magura MT7 brakes. Strong, reliable brakes are a must on a bike geared towards aggressive riding. These aren't the most powerful in the Magura range, but don't be fooled, they provide plenty of stopping power, great lever feel, and built-in adjustability. Also got along with the Super Deluxe Plus rear shock. This shock has been around for a while now and has seen many refinements over the years. Paired with the IFS suspension, it gives the rear end a fantastic feel, making the bike ride like it has more than 140 mils of travel, while still offering excellent pedaling efficiency. It's also the same shock found on the top of the line build, so you're not missing out on going with the T8 for this specific spec choice. These components were by far the two things that stood out throughout the whole testing period. Now taking a quick look at some of the components I'd potentially swap out on this stock build. And first up would be the front tyre. All models come with Maxxis Dissector tyres in a 2.4 inch width, and they're also using the Maxterra compound, which is a slightly firmer rubber. It's a solid rear tyre, but for the front I'd prefer something wider, softer and more aggressive, like the Maxxis Minion. If I got this bike, I'd swap the front tyre immediately and keep the stock Dissector as a spare rear. The cable-actuated GX drivetrain performed well, but on a 2026 bike with a mid-level spec, I was hoping to see the new cable transmission drivetrain. I'd also down the track upgrade the Lyric fork on this bike. It comes with the Select model, but if you were to go one level up to the Select Plus, this would give you a fork with the 3.1 charger damper, including both high and low speed compression adjustments, whereas the stock fork only has low speed compression. Aside from these changes that I'd potentially make, I was pretty happy with the spec of the T8. It's appropriate for the style of riding this bike is intended for, and it offers good value. So wrapping things up, I do have to say it again, this is potentially the most solid and well-rounded mountain bike Polygon has ever made. I got along with it very well across a wide variety of terrain. From bike parks to all-day backcountry missions, it performed in all situations. The carbon frame is excellent. Polygon has done a great job with their high-end frames lately. There's plenty of potential for tinkering with the adjustable geo. You could even push it closer to an enduro setup with beefier tyres and a burlier fork like the RockShox Zeb or Fox 38. That kind of upgrade would not feel out of place on a bike like this. I hope you found this video review interesting, but if you're keen to know more about the Polygon Colossus T8, be sure to head to the link below for the full in-depth written review. We'll see you next time, or better yet, out on the trails. Catch you later.